And joining us now on the Night Shift podcast, or if you're watching this on video, the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. She graduated from UCF in 2015. She participated in the rugby club, and that allowed her to get to the U.S. Rugby Sevens national team, which has been to the Olympics. So she's already been a one-time Olympian. She'll be a two-time Olympian now that she's been named to the team that will be going to Paris 2024. I'm, of course, speaking of Kristen Thomas. Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and just start because obviously, people that listen to the show a lot don't really hear about rugby because it isn't a varsity sport at UCF. So I just want to get to first start off with what's it like for you to be at this national team level of athletics in a sport that doesn't really have a varsity presence in collegiate sports?
It can be very difficult. The jump was pretty hard to do. So for us, like at UCF, we trained typically 2 times a week for 2 hours. Whereas once you get to the national team, you're training anywhere from like 4 to 5 times a week, looking at like 1 to 2 trainings a day with the gym session. So we really hadn't done like much conditioning, much fitness going into the national team and like the skills development is just very difficult to achieve when you're playing a club sport. So I think like for me, when I first started with the national team, like a lot of the feedback that they gave me was just on like general fundamentals, like my passing and then like my fitness level. So it was just really difficult. Like I know like the NCAA athletes have more opportunities to have like access to like a strength and conditioning coaches that'll get you strong, they'll get you fit, and that you kind of have like a much stronger base. So what we see with the national team now is that those athletes coming from those varsity programs, they just have like a little bit of a stronger base than like those of us who played at the club level. But even so, I was able to make the jump and I've been with the national team for 9 years now, going on 10. So it was tough, but it's definitely doable.
So how does one go from being on like a like a club team to getting the attention of the US national team?
For me, my journey was through the national championships. So I had been scouted for the under 20 national team my first year playing rugby, but it didn't go well. I just didn't perform well at the camp. So they essentially, weren't looking at me as a candidate at that time. And then the following year, we qualified for nationals. So we went to the Sweet 16s competition in Maryland. And that's where the under 23 collegiate national coach scouted me. So she asked for my information from our coaches. And then I attended that camp. I did really well. I ended up making that team. I went on tour with them to France. And then from that point on, she gave my information to the head coach for the senior national team. And that's when I started going out to California for camps. The way it works is that they give your name, you get invited out to a week-long camp, and then you train with the national team as if you're on the team. This is how it worked back in the past. It's a little bit different now. So I went out to 3 different camps in California before being offered a residency contract in January of 2015.
Man, that's kind of nuts because I remember reading about you and how you first started playing rugby when you signed up for the UCF rugby club, and so to go from that and to being scouted from the national team right away, like what was that like to kind of like just enter this sport and then all of a sudden national team kind of pops in the picture?
It was a bit daunting. I personally hadn't, because I hadn't been playing very long, I wasn't really familiar with the rugby national team. So I had never seen any of their matches. I didn't know of any of the players. I didn't know that we had a national team. Like I just had never thought about it. So yeah, it was a bit daunting. I think like I let that get to me a little bit in the first camp. Like I saw like a lot of other people that have been playing just a lot longer and they just have more experience. But for the second time around, I think I just tried to approach it from a different perspective. Like one of my teammates was also going with me, Shannon Steele. She was also scouted for that camp. So I just tried to approach it differently. I tried to just say like, hey, I'm going to this camp. I'm just going to do my best and have fun. And I just performed a lot better. So it can be a bit much. And I definitely didn't see like my life trajectory going this way. But I'm really grateful for it. So it's a pretty cool experience.
So what made you decide to sign up for the rugby club in the first place? And also, considering what you do now, was the rugby club rugby union or rugby sevens?
Rugby union. So at the point in time that I was playing, UCF only played rugby union, which is rugby 15s. So yeah, at the time that I was playing, we only played 15s rugby. So I had signed up for it because I dated a rugby player. So my ex played rugby my senior year of high school, and I tried to join like a local team. I'm from Philadelphia, so I tried to join a local team in Philly. But the way it works is it's a women's team and they have jobs, so that like naturally they train at like they were training, I think, from like 6:30 to 8:30 or 7 to 9 at night. And like I'm still in high school and it was kind of far from my house. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait until I go to college. So I went to college and I just signed up for it the first year. I still didn't know much about the sport. I had never really seen it played full out, but I was running track. I was bored with that. I had played basketball a little bit here and there. I was a cheerleader. So I just didn't really want to continue on with any of the sports that I was already doing. So, but I still wanted to be on a team. I wanted to play sports. So I just decided to give rugby a shot.
Yeah, because I remember seeing how you played basketball and track in high school, and then you ended up with rugby. So, what made rugby just stand out as a sport to you? You're exposed to the sport in high school. What makes you to say like this is the type of team I want to be on?
Initially, nothing. Honestly, I just wanted to be on a team, and it seemed cool. Like I really didn't know anything about it, but I just figured why not? Like why not just go out and try it? But I think once I actually joined the team, like it was just so much fun because it's like a sport that most of us in the US don't grow up playing. Everyone was new. So like the team is just so welcoming. Like even to this day, when you join a rugby team, there's no like the I guess like since everyone kind of had that same experience of like showing up freshman year or whatever year they decided to join the team, they are just so welcoming. So they just like we needed players and they just like welcome me with open arms, were willing to like teach me everything about the sport because they're just so used to teaching the sport. So I think like I was just really drawn in by the community. Like I've made some of my best friends playing rugby. Like all of my best friends from college like played. So I think it was just like that, just the friendliness that drew me in. Like instantly, it was like, okay, this is like a really cool place to be. Like, and now I'm playing like this sport that's really cool. It's like so dynamic, it's fast, it's powerful, like you can tackle. It's just there's just so many aspects of the game. Like the sport never gets boring. Like you're just doing so many things. There's so much to focus on that it's just always exciting.
So tell me what it's like, because we talked to and UCF athletes on the varsity teams, and the student life, athlete life in terms of that. But what about as far as a student athlete life when it comes to someone that's on the sport club teams? One of our colleagues here at the Banneret, Nick Porcelli, is also on a sport club. He's in Night Runners, but I want to get a chance to like what's it like being as far as the rugby team?
It's difficult. It's really challenging because the infrastructure isn't really in place for club athletes. So like, I haven't had that NCAA experience, so I wouldn't know the difference. But from my understanding, I was in RA, so I had like the softball team in my building. They just have like some things built in. Like they have study halls built in. They like their professors know that they're on the team. They might have like a game this night or this morning. Like they'll miss class because of X, Y, and Z. So you just have a lot more support, a lot more resources. So being a club sport athlete, like I majored in theater and they were not very understanding because as you can imagine, like theater is like a very intensive program. Like you're in the shop for hours on a day. Like I had 90 scholarship hours to do every semester in the scene shop. The classes were early morning classes. We would leave for like several days for tournaments and I would have to like explain that. Or even when I started getting scouted for the national team, I would have to get like a waiver to be able to miss class for an entire week. So it was very difficult to make up the work. I think like it's a little bit different when you don't have like the backing of like I'm a D1 athlete, like I am gonna miss all of these things. I've just had to do all that essentially like explaining myself. And some of my professors just really didn't like it, which is understandable. Like they're there to teach me. They didn't really like they just really didn't understand. Like I had one professor ask me, like, are you majoring in rugby or are you majoring in theater? And I'm like, okay, I am majoring in theater, but like I have this really cool opportunity with like the national rugby team, so I'm like trying to pull off both. So it was challenging. I even ended up like switching majors because I was initially in the BFA track for theater, but I just couldn't pull off rugby and the BFA track, so I switched to the BA track. So it's tough, but it's doable. You just have to kind of figure it all out and do a lot of explaining, and you have to essentially try to fit in your trainings around school, because like for me, like I had rugby teammates, but like their goal wasn't to make the national team. So like for me, I'm doing like hours of conditioning outside of practice. I'm doing hours of passing outside of practice, just working on technical skills. And when you're an NCAA athlete, you have like all these other athletes that are doing it. You have like the hours dedicated to that. But when you're a club athlete, it's just you. So I had to like ask a teammate, like, hey, I know you have 5 assignments due, but can you like pass with me? Or I would just have to go do it on my own. So it was a bit of a juggling act.
So, so you end up getting scouted for the national team. When looking back at what it was like for you at UCF, how is the Kristen Thomas that went to UCF different from the Kristen Thomas we're seeing right now?
That's a good one. I think I'm vastly different in like how I see the world, I guess now, because I started with the national team, I think when I was like 21, and now I'm 30. I'm turning like 31 next week. So I think there was obviously like the growing that happens when you're in college for 4 years, but then there's also like the growing that happens when you go and you do this really I don't want to say wild, intensive thing, I guess, for the next years of your life. So I essentially like graduated from college and went straight into doing this like other really intense thing. So I mean, it's definitely taught me a lot about myself. So I think I did like the general life growing that we do in like our 20s through being with the national team, but I was also surrounded by like people that were like just like my teammates are just like super dedicated to their craft. They're just so passionate about what they do, and it was cool. Like it's just really cool to be surrounded by like passion every day, people that want to have different types of like impact on the world, maybe that be for climate change, maybe whether that be for like civil rights, human rights. And we just like are just like such a passionate group, and we just have this is the really grand goal of winning the Olympics. So it's just like a really cool thing to be surrounded by. So I think I became like more of a dreamer. Like I think I always had dreams, but I think I just being surrounded by other people who are just like such dreamers and just have these like grand goals. And then like it taught me a lot of discipline. Like I had never done any like conditioning to the level that we do on the national team. So you really have to like sink or swim. So it really taught me discipline. It really taught me to like really fight for everything that I want. It's like nothing's going to be handed to you. So yeah, I'm so different now from when I was, that 21-year-old graduating UCF.
So you play rugby union at UCF, and I saw that you did dabble in the rugby union national team for USA, but ultimately you kind of made your home with rugby sevens. So tell me about how you kind of got introduced to the sevens game.
So so I should explain that only rugby sevens is in the Olympics currently. So if you want to be a professional rugby player, and be professional and get paid in the US to play rugby as a woman, you play for the national team. So for the national team to get that payment, to get that consistent income year round, you have to play rugby sevens. And that's the one because our funding comes from the US Olympic Committee. So that was pretty much it. Like I was actually scouted for the under 23 national 15s team. That's what I went to France to play, but our coach gave my name to the national rugby sevens team. And I have dabbled with I don't want to say dabbled. I've represented the US in 15s as well. But I was not paid to do that. Like they get a per diem now, but it's not a year-round residency contract that the national sevens team has. So essentially, when I was scouted for the national sevens team, I had to just do like a pivot, and that's kind of just the rugby that you do if you want to get paid and you want to like compete in the Olympics. But I had played a little bit during the summers. So UCF only played rugby 15s, but I played for Orlando Rugby Club, and I played for Keystone Rugby Clubs during the summer. So yeah.
So what's the biggest difference, would you say, between playing rugby union and playing rugby sevens?
Ooh, they're just two complete, I don't want to say completely different games because they are the same. They have the same laws for the most part. Rugby sevens is more, from my position, more physically demanding. You have to have this combination of like pace, agility, vision, and fitness. Fitness is a massive component of rugby sevens. Being dynamic into spaces is a massive component. And that's not to say that the 15s team doesn't do the same thing, but it's just a different game because rugby sevens is just 7-a-side, whereas rugby 15s is just like 15 aside. So you're playing like a chess match, you're getting through like smaller gaps, smaller spaces. Whereas rugby sevens, you are competing on like the same size field, but with only 7 people. So the gaps are just bigger. You're looking to exploit space in a much different way. And then on the defensive side, you have to tackle these really dynamic people with a lot of space. So it just takes a lot of know-how, a lot of tracking. Yeah, the skill set is just a little bit different because you're defending like a larger amount of space. So yeah, rugby 15s and rugby sevens are just two slightly different games. And it's a shorter game. It's only 2 7-minute halves. So it happens like really fast. Anything can happen. One mistake could really cost you the game sometimes, depending on how bad it is.
You know, it's funny because when I think about watching the game, watching the both games, it's almost like rugby sevens is like playing on a football, like an American football like sized playing surface, but you only have the resources of about like a roughly a basketball team. Like so, it's like you take the starting five of a basketball team and you put them on a football field. It's
Yeah.
and they play football. That's sort of like how they thought about that. So. I remember that reading up about you the first time you went to the Olympics in Tokyo, that you actually ended up missing the 2016 Olympics
Mhm.
because of injury. You mentioned that if you wanted to, get paid, you wanted to play on the rugby sevens team to go to the Olympics. How did sort of Olympic ambitions sort of enter into the conversation for you? I mean, it's a kind of interesting to go from like being introduced to this sport and it's sport just looking for a team to be in college, and all of a sudden and then a few years later there's Olympic prospects.
Mhm. It's a little bit surreal. It happened so quickly that first year that it was a little bit difficult to wrap my mind around. Because I grew up watching the Olympics. Like I still remember watching people like Katie Ledecky compete at their first Olympics and like screaming for them, like cheering for her and everything. So I love the Olympics. Like when the Olympics are on, like I was like glued to the TV. I was watching everything, even the Winter Olympics, like the biathlon, the snowboarding, like everything. So to reach a point where I was going to be competing in the Olympics was a pretty surreal thing. I'm not even really sure when it clicked, but I joined the national team in 2015, and then next year was an Olympic year. So for us, it's just a really it becomes common language. Like it's weird when we talk to like people who aren't in our little bubble and they're like, "Oh, the Olympics are happening this year." And it's like, "Yes, they are." Like we talk about the Olympics like every day, every week, whereas they talk about them once they start seeing like the NBC commercials. So it's like you're just in this like little bubble of like Olympics, 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 So for us, we talk about it all the time. That is like what we are training for. We also compete on a World Series. So we train to win those World Series competitions, and we train to win any pinnacle event that we have, like the World Cup, the Pan American Games. So essentially, like we're always training for something big, but we also have like the World Series tournaments that we treat with respect also. But yeah, I'm not really sure when I guess the jump happened to like me being like watching the Olympics to like having the opportunity to go to the Olympics. But yeah, in 2015, once I was in the mix, it was just like the Olympics are next year. We're preparing for it. So then suddenly I was preparing for it. Yeah.
So obviously, I believe you guys did go to Rio 2016, but you were unable to be there due to injury, but you were able to be on the team for Tokyo 2020, Tokyo 2021. I believe I remember watching this. You scored the first try of that games, I believe. So what did it mean to you, especially after not getting a chance to go to your first Olympics in 2016, to come to Tokyo and get that first score right off the bat?
It was amazing. It was just such an amazing experience, especially because like when I went into that game, it was pretty close. So, like here we are, like this is my first Olympics. This is many of our first Olympics, and we get this opponent, and they're really giving us like a really like a tough game. So I like when I came on and I scored, I was just like so excited to like give us like a little bit of like breathing room to say, hey, we're gonna be all right. Like we prepared for this type thing. So yeah, it was pretty special. Yeah, I think like the journey toward the Tokyo Olympics were pretty challenging just because, like when you have this grand dream and then you get injured like 2 months before, it was devastating. Like even to this day, it just like I remember the feelings, it's pretty devastating. So to be able to like go out there in the next Olympics and like not just make the team but to play well, it was pretty special for me. And it was just like, I can't believe this is happening, but like it's happening type thing. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, so Team USA finished in sixth place in that tournament. What's the biggest, and then obviously you guys compete in that that rugby HSBC World Seven Series.
Mhm.
So what have you learned over the course of these last three years that as you guys go into Paris 2024?
The biggest learning for us was to be ready for anything. So for us, like when we made it to the quarterfinal, we had to play Great Britain. And off of this, we had just played Great Britain, I think like 4 times, 3 or 4 times, and we beat them every single time. So for us, we just like weren't really expecting anything different. Like with rugby sevens, you just never know what's going to happen. So you are ready for anything essentially, but I don't think we were prepared for everything. So I think like we went into this game and they presented us with a picture that we had never seen from them before, and it really just shook us. Like we didn't really know how to get out of it. Whereas for this Olympics, we are literally preparing for like every single possible picture that like another team could give us or possible scenario. And I think hopefully, we're hoping that that'll really set us up for success and like make us adaptable, even if it's something that we haven't seen before, because we have had those opportunities to adapt already.
So on the note of the HSBC 7 series, because that's something that I believe happens a lot more often than the Olympics does. Seeing your kind of stat sheet on there is really blows my mind, where you played in over 200 matches, 480 points scored, 96 tries. Even this season alone, at your age 30 season, you still scored 3 tries and 15 points and played in 18 matches. What pushes you to kind of to keep on what you've been doing in rugby? Because obviously, in sports, eventually, the fight against father time comes along. So what
Mhm.
has really pushed you to kind of keep going, to be one of the leaders on this team?
Mhm. For me, my main drive is that I just really enjoy it. Like I absolutely love playing rugby. And yeah, it is challenging. I think it is tougher now, like being 30 years old than it was running around when I was 21. But I just love the sport so much still. And I just love hanging out with my teammates every day. I like going to work. Like I think all of that just motivates me to keep going. And we still haven't achieved like the goal that we set out to achieve. So which is to win a medal for the US in rugby sevens. So, that dream, that drive, that's still motivating me along with like just enjoying like this journey that I'm on. So I'm actually retiring after this upcoming Olympics. So like for me, it's like every day it's just been like take it all in. Like take everything that you can in, because this is coming to an end. So like and I'm excited for like what's next for me on my life journey. But at the same time, it's just really given me like an appreciation of like what I've been able to do, the experience I've been able to have like for these last 9 years.
Yeah, I noticed because you were named to the team as a traveling reserve. What does it mean to you? Because obviously you missed the chance to go to that first Olympics. What does it mean to you get a chance to go to the Olympics one more time?
I'm really excited. Yeah, like this season like has truly been a battle. Like our team is so competitive, and like I feel like for me at age 30, I'm just not playing as well as I have like in my youth, or I guess in my prime. So like to even be named to the squad, it's like truly an honor. And I think like a testament to like how hard like I've had to work just to like keep up, and like just to still like compete and try to be like a really good athlete on this team, and a good representation for the team, and someone who is going to contribute to the success of this team. So yeah, it's definitely been a battle, but I'm still honored to be named even as a traveling reserve. So at this point, I'm just trying to like be prepared if anything. Obviously, I want everyone to go through the games healthy and get everything done and bring back like that gold medal, but I will be doing whatever role I am called to do like within these next 4 weeks to make sure that the team is successful.
Well, I mean, I remember reading how like people have really called you a leader in the clubhouse. What is it like to see this team develop into what it was, and what do you think the biggest difference is between last year's team or last Olympics' team versus this one?
Mm. I would say that this is one of the most dynamic teams that the US has ever put together. Like, and I think yeah, like this team is really special. Like we just have so much firepower. Like so I think like the amount of firepower that we have on this team, whether that be like the older people who have been bringing it for years, or like some new people who have really just stepped in and like absolutely crushed this season. The team is just like when we're backing ourselves and being really decisive, like we are unstoppable. Like so I just like think we just have so much firepower on this team that like this is the most dynamic I've seen us, the most adaptable I've seen us, the most grit I've seen us have. So I think there's just like so many special aspects about this team that we have in particular that yeah, I'm just really excited to see what comes together.
What has your experience with rugby done for your view on the just the sports development in the U.S. as a whole? I know Major League Rugby has been going around doing its thing since for the past few years. I remember watching you play in the first season of Premier Rugby Sevens and that whole experience. So, what is it kind of like to be a part of that sort and kind of see its evolution as it tries to find a place in the U.S. sporting culture?
It has been exciting. Yeah, so the MLR is like a huge step for us. And then Premier Rugby Sevens also another huge step. I think for us the big thing, the next big thing would be to include the women in the MLR, and to have it like a women's professional league for rugby 15s. And then also extending PR sevens. So right now PR sevens typically takes place for like I think like 4 to 6 weeks throughout the year. And then they have like a championship. Whereas like ideally we would have like a domestic league for rugby sevens that would be like super exciting, to give more athletes the opportunity to play professional. So right now, in our team, I think we have like for most of the season, we had like 23, 24. That's only like 23 or 24 women that get the opportunity out of the entire US to play professionally in a given year. So you have to be like the best of the best to get this opportunity. Whereas if we were to be able to start a professional league, I think that would just be like huge for the sport, because you'd have like hundreds of women getting the opportunity, and then that in turn makes the national team better, because like we're just developing the sport more. So rugby still has a ways to go. There's talks of starting a professional women's 15s league next year, so I'm excited to hear more about that. So I think yeah, the sport just has more growing to do, but I'm hopeful. I hope that we can go to the Olympics and win the gold, and that would like put like many more eyes on us. So we bring in a lot more funding, and that would really be like exactly what we need to really like kickstart this like rugby sevens for like journey for the women in like the domestic league. So yeah, we still have a ways to go, but it's been cool to see the progress that we've made in like my 9 year journey.
So I remember seeing a flyer a while back because I believe you have visited UCF in UCF in the time since you've graduated, right?
Yes, yeah, many times.
So what's it been like now, at least, like especially after coming back since Tokyo to come back to campus as an Olympian to kind of share your experience with whatever event you're invited back to?
I can't say that I've spoke specifically on the Olympics to like the UCF community, but when I used to come back, I used to come back and like help coach for like a week or so at a time. So it's a little bit different. So I think I should actually like schedule that. So I need to like get something on the books for me to go back and like really connect with like the rugby team because I haven't been back, I don't know, I think like since COVID. So yeah, pre-COVID I used to go back. I used to coach a lot, but post-COVID Olympics, I haven't been back to like share that experience. I received like the under 30 award, but I had to send my best friends in my place because we had a tournament like the same weekend, so I couldn't even attend that. But yeah, I definitely want to get back to UCF to kind of talk to the sports teams or even talk to like the rugby team and help coach again to just be like more involved with the community.
What does it mean to you to represent UCF at UCF at the Olympic level? Because it's not, especially for Team USA, because it's not every day that the only one I can think of immediately off the top of my head is like, well, Michelle Akers for soccer, but you know, aside from the soccer pitch, a UCF on Team USA is very few and far between. So what does it mean to you to be able to kind of represent UCF on that Olympic level?
It's super special. I really enjoyed all my years at UCF and rep it proudly. So I think for me, like I am very thankful of like the journey, like my entire life's journey. And a big part of that journey was making the decision to go to UCF. And that's how I got scouted by the national team. And that's how I kind of like am where I am today. So it's just like a really special place for me. So I am really thankful to UCF and like sending me on this like massive trajectory. I think like the school is so big, as we both know, that like there's so many alumni that like sometimes I read the billboards, I'm like, wow, there's like some really special things happening. And like, UCF just I feel like has like such a proud community of like, I don't know, just like nights like getting stuff done or like just doing like really cool things. And like maybe it's not even sports. I know one person was like working with NBC. I know another person was doing some really big stuff with like Disney and writing. And like so it's just like really cool to be like, I guess, one of the faces among this like school that's producing some like really cool people doing like really cool things. So yeah, I'm super proud.
So I know you've been very generous with the time, and I really appreciate that. So I'll wrap it up with I'll wrap it up with this. Is if there is what would you want to say to Night Nation? Because obviously, our audience here is very familiar with the UCF varsity sports, football, basketball, all of that stuff, and so they might not be as familiar with the sports clubs or rugby, aside from whenever our colleague Nick Porcelli talks about Night Runners. But what would you want to say to that type of audience of people about rugby, about Team USA, or at least as far as those sports?
About rugby, please go out and support the UCF rugby teams. Like if UCF were to go, like UCF is already a powerhouse even at the club level. If UCF were to go varsity, I think that would literally change the game. Like there are so many talented rugby players playing in the state of Florida and they are just not scouted. Like they're just not scouted. Like I only got scouted because we went to play to the Sweet 16s Nationals in Maryland. So I think like if UCF were to make the rugby team varsity to make it NCAA, I think it would just like really, I know we're already on the map, but like I think it would really just like make UCF like a powerhouse rugby school because there's literally like so much talent around. So yeah, please just go support that. Support the team in any way. Like club sports are just we still have matches where spectators can come to, even if we're not like D1 varsity. So it's still exciting. Rugby's really exciting. You won't be disappointed. And then about Team USA, yeah, please keep backing us. We're really excited to represent everyone this summer. It's what we literally train for. Like I've been training for like 9 years at this point. And it's just like such an exciting time for us. So if you happen to tune into a rugby game, our games will be on NBC. You won't be disappointed in that too. It's like such a fun sport. 2 7-minute halves, super fast paced. There's big hits, there's collisions, there's fast people. Like it's the ultra sport is just like such an exciting thing to watch. So that's my little plug for rugby there.
Yes, I was gonna say we'll definitely be sure to support you here at the Black and Gold Banneret as you have talk with a couple other UCF Olympians as well as covering the Olympic trials which are going on as we are recording this. Chris,
Mhm.
thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in Paris, and hopefully we'll be able to see Team USA make a podium this time around.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.